I appreciate you guys joining us today. My name is Gus. I am with KW Commercial, and I'm also the KW Productivity Coach here in Claremont. I'm here with the Ortiz Anomaly podcast with MJ Coleman, who is with MAPS Business Coach.
That's correct.
Coaching, and we're going to be talking today about just all kinds of stuff. So I'm super excited to have you. I've known you for many, many years.
Yes.
And I'm interested in hearing about just like the beginning and the end, and where it's all going in your view. So let me just make sure we get you. So I'm just adjusting because my cameraman, who's me also, needs to make sure that we have this good. That looks good. Okay. All right. So we good?
We're good.
I think we're good. All right. Awesome. So MJ. So good to see you. I gotta tell you, I'm super excited. I was super excited. I can't tell you how excited I was when I saw like just in my inbox. I just saw MJ Coleman just set an appointment. I was like, what? That's awesome. So I was super stoked about it. So thank you so much for coming. I always like to start kind of like for people to just learn a little bit about your journey. I met you when you were actually in the real estate world.
Yep.
And I know you had a whole career before even I met you. So I'm interested to hear, like, how you started. I guess it doesn't have to be all the way to the beginning, but like where I guess this business map, business maps coaching, where it kind of came from. You started in. Did you start in real estate? No, you did. You had another career before that.
I had a couple other careers before that.
So start wherever you feel comfortable. But I'd be interested just to hear what that journey kind of sounded like to get you to where you are today.
Okay, perfect. So, once I graduated college, I went into a management training program in retail, and I spent several years in retail. Okay. And then when I wanted to start my family, I wanted my own business so that I could do it from home and I could be home with my kids. So I went through a variety of businesses. I had like a tiki hut building business.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's so funny. I would never have thought that.
That was we're in Florida, so it was easy to get the supplies, right?
Okay, sure.
And then also I had daycares. I had a couple different daycares.
Okay.
And once my kids were all in school, I was a little bit burnt out on that. And so I decided to go ahead and explore other opportunities. So I thought about retail. I thought about, because I had so much experience with that.
Yeah.
And then I looked at real estate. I had moved quite a bit. And so I finally landed on real estate just because the startup costs were really low.
Yeah.
And it was something that I would have flexibility in my schedule.
Right.
And so that's how I ended up in real estate.
Gotcha.
So fast forward, I'm in real estate. I become a broker, and now I'm a manager again. Okay, so I went from management to owning my own businesses to management again.
Okay.
And it really was when I joined Keller Williams that I learned about leading through coaching versus just managing people, and what a big difference it made in production and everybody's happiness.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's when I really kind of caught the bug. And part of my role, once I owned the Keller Williams office, was to coach the agents into production.
Sure, that makes sense.
And take, people who had been making maybe $35,000 a year and help them build a business where they're over six figures in their first year.
That's awesome.
That was exciting, right? That really turned me on. And so that was something that I just absolutely caught the bug. And, and for anybody that's listening that owns a business, you wear a million different hats.
Oh, for sure.
And owning a real estate office is no different. You're constantly wearing different hats, fighting fires, cleaning the bathrooms. I don't care what you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Like, as a business owner, you do a lot.
Okay.
And so when the opportunity came for me to sell the office and start a new chapter in my life, I said, I really want to coach. That was the part of my job that I loved the most, because I could change lives.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just that one person's life, it was a legacy for their whole family.
Of course. Yeah.
So, when you take somebody from $35,000 a year to over $100,000 in their first year, they're making different decisions.
Oh, sure.
And investments.
It's a different world.
And they have to invest in themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's completely different.
Now they have like the freedom to be able to go to these vacations that they always hope for, and support their family and provide, and different. Now they can buy a house instead of rent, and all kinds of stuff.
It changes everything.
Yeah,
and their personal development. It allows them to go pay for different conventions and different training programs and things like that to grow as an individual as well.
Yeah.
So that was really when that all began. So somewhere around 2010, I really became a coach.
Gotcha.
And then about 2019, 2020, right when COVID hit, is when I left real estate altogether and just did coaching full time.
I was very excited about that. We were on the same team together.
So we were, and I loved coaching you. There's no doubt about it. I absolutely loved it. That was hard. That was the hardest part.
Of course,
was leading the people, which is the way it should be.
Exactly. But it was what's that word? Cathartic, right?
Yes.
It was cathartic because we were super excited about you and the journey that you were going on, and it felt like you were like I guess I could say it was like the way that I would imagine what it would look like to watch someone who's about to go on this adventure and they're putting on their backpack and they're like getting their hat on and about to go off on this journey. I'm like, we don't know where you're going, but it looks like it's going to be amazing.
It is amazing.
So that's awesome.
It's just, and for anybody that's, anybody, not even somebody who owned a business, really working in your highest and best use is so fulfilling. And it's like you end your day with more energy than you started your day.
That's awesome.
When you're working in your zone.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
That's how my life is now.
Okay. So now I want to kind of switch gears now that you're actively a business coach. Like, what type, because obviously you came from the real estate world and real estate agents themselves are individual businesses, right? And they have to build their business, stuff like that. But you actually kind of went outside of the real estate environment, and you're really a little bit more open. Do you specialize in anything in particular?
I don't, which is really fun.
Okay.
So the company that I align myself with is also a Gary Keller company. So they are related, but they're not together. They're more like cousins.
Gotcha.
And so basically, Gary Keller had so much influence in the real estate world. He then wrote a book called The One Thing.
Yes.
And that book took all his theories on building a business and made them available to any business.
Yeah.
It didn't just have to be real estate anymore.
Yeah.
Well, that created a community of people who wanted more. Just the book was not enough for them.
Wow.
They wanted workshops, they wanted coaching, they wanted training. And so they developed this coaching branch.
Okay.
And so that's where I had the opportunity. Basically, anybody who could buy the One Thing book could become our client.
Yeah.
So I have coached people from manufacturing companies, a lighting designer in Manhattan, title companies, attorneys, home inspection companies, construction companies. I mean, you name it. I've had the opportunity. I think I added it up recently. It was over 40 different businesses that I've coached in my tenure.
That's amazing.
So yeah.
So what do you find when you go into these businesses? What do you find? Is there like a common thread that seems to be the biggest challenge for a business owner that's growing their business? I mean, considering that you're seeing a bunch of different businesses.
Yes, absolutely. There's two common threads. They're working in their business instead of on their business. So nobody is leading the force.
Okay.
Right?
That makes sense.
They're stuck in the business day to day. And a lot of it has to do with turnover. There's a million different reasons why they're still stuck in the business.
So when you say they're stuck in the business, just for those people who may not understand what that concept is, they are basically an employee in the business and they have a job, but they're not actually operating like a CEO.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So that's a perfect definition. Okay. So they're finding themselves, they want to be a CEO.
Yeah.
Most people get into business because they want to have profit and they want to be able to, kind of write their own route and do their own thing and have great people working for them and do the boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Right. But what happens is that there's been a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
Or they just have trouble finding great people and they're stuck with people that really are not performing at the level they need them, and so they're constantly being pulled back into the day to day.
Yeah.
Right, and they're fighting fires, and they have customer service problems and things like that.
Sure,
that's extremely common to people that come to me.
Interesting.
And the main factor is time. It all comes down to time.
Like when you say time, it's like how they manage the time that they have. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and they say you can't really manage time.
Yeah,
but you can designate time in your day to continue to move your business forward and to do those things that are going to be most critical to getting you out of that position, back out off the floor or out of the truck or all of that working, and then really guiding the business and driving it forward.
Okay.
And that's the catalyst. That is the catalyst that helps people move from the business owning them to them owning the business.
That's a really interesting concept because I find that the business owners, at least that I've talked to, and this is both in real estate and outside of real estate, that seem the most frustrated is when they feel powerless in their own business and they feel like they just have a job.
Yeah.
And it's that, like, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is kind of where people feel like when they're in a job that feels like a dead end job.
Right.
It's the same. It sounds very similar, like in the conversation, just like they can't grow anymore, or they're constantly putting out fires and stuff like that. So it's interesting that that is so common amongst business owners.
Yep.
So I guess I guess the silver lining in that is that if a business owner is feeling that way, they're not alone.
No,
that's normal.
That is completely normal.
Yeah,
completely normal. And I brought some books with me today.
Okay.
Because this book, Predictable Success, this book talks about the whirlwind.
Okay.
So if you can imagine, the whirlwind is what you feel when you walk into an office when your business owns you.
Yeah.
Right. You walk in and there's 15 emails that you really should have taken care of yesterday that are urgent. There's phone ringing. There's customers. Somebody's sick. It's the whirlwind. A machine breaks down. That is the whirlwind of a business.
Okay.
It's always going to be there.
Sure.
It's always, but it's not always going to be yours to deal with.
I see.
And if you have systems and processes in place, there's going to be less of a whirlwind, and there's going to be a contingency plan when things go wrong.
Gotcha.
So it's really just kind of figuring out how to get all those things into place so that you can have a controllable whirlwind. We live near Disney, so I often say, instead of the Barnstormer, instead of Space Mountain, which is like this, your business is constantly up and down. You're on the Barnstormer, so you just have like this little bit of a ride that's not so rough, and you can handle it.
So, what do you, for the typical business owner that feels like, they just don't have the bandwidth to do what you're talking about? Like, how do you, like, what's the first thing that you need to address in a scenario like that, where the business owner's like, I don't have time.
I don't have time. That's the first thing they tell us. I don't have time. So what I always say to them is, we all have time. Like everybody you think of, think of a mentor. Who is a mentor? Somebody really successful that you admire.
I would say Brandy's a good one.
Okay, so Brandy. So Brandy is a top agent, and she has 4 kids. She has, I don't even know how many grandchildren now.
Yeah.
She has 1 million cows.
Yeah.
If you don't know about Brandy, she has a lot of cows. And she always has time. Do you ever see her harried? She's like
it's
never hair on fire.
It's very rare.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't see the hair on fire.
Yeah.
You don't see the stress in her.
Yeah.
Because she knows how to utilize her time.
Yeah.
So we can't manage it, right? But we can balance it a little bit. We can carve out time.
Sure.
For getting a system in place that's going to save you time down the road.
Yeah.
We can carve out time for hiring that amazing employee that is going to change everything in your business. We can carve out time for coaching everybody in our organization instead of just managing them, so that they become more independent and they're able to think for themselves, make great decisions, and be able to handle tasks without you getting involved.
Yeah.
Right. So it comes down that is always the first thing I need to do with, well, I shouldn't say it's the first thing. The very first thing I do with a client is I just learn about their business, because like we mentioned, I've coached all different kinds of businesses. So I need to have an understanding of how that business operates and how they make money.
For sure.
But then I ask about their team. And I actually fill out an org chart with not the bubble chart, but the strengths and the weaknesses and what that person needs to be able to work at capacity in their role and be happy about it. Right. And then we get them coaching. I'm coaching with them. I'm holding them accountable as an owner. And then they learn how to coach their people through our coaching.
I see.
And so then the next thing you know, they're coaching their people instead of just managing their people.
I gotcha.
And they're getting a much higher performance out of each individual.
Now, what would you say is the difference between managing somebody and coaching somebody? What are the key differences?
That's such a good question.
Yeah.
That's such a good question. A manager knows who they are, but a coach understands what they are.
Oh, interesting.
A coach understands what their motivation is. And we call it in our business the big why. Why do you get out of bed and put your feet on the floor and go to work every single day? Why do you do that? Is it because it excites you and you absolutely love the business you're in? Even people who go into businesses they think they're going to love, like movie stars, they think, oh, it's just going to be glamorous, it's going to be fabulous, I'm going to be rich beyond my means, and all this kind of craziness. There's a time that becomes a drudgery.
Oh, sure.
It
they
becomes
can't go.
a drudgery.
They can't go into public. They can't walk around without being harassed.
They have 18-hour days. Oh yeah. So when you think about it, every job has its good and its bad. But something gets you out of bed, puts your feet on the ground, and gets you going. Yeah. For me, it was my kids. When I started in real estate, and I realized I would have like unlimited potential for income. Yeah. I said, what would I do with that? What is important to me? And I knew I wanted my kids to have whatever education they wanted, to do whatever career excited them. I knew that I wanted them all to have investment homes, and I knew I wanted to have investment homes so I could leave a legacy, a wealth legacy. Yeah. And then also I travel. I love to travel, and so I wanted to have the disposable income to travel. So I went to a course actually through Keller Williams where we laid out that vision. And you hear about like vision boards. Sure. It's the same thing. You've got to kind of lay it out there for the universe and for yourself to have the clarity on why you're getting up and going to work every day. And then really it's up to the coach, the manager, that they then keep them focused on that vision. Because if they focus them on that vision, then they'll keep on working as hard as they can.
So I love this. One of the things that I think I run into even myself, but sometimes it's like the vision board, for example, right? Which I think is a really great tool. Yeah. But before I really understood like what it actually did, it sounded like a lot of fluff and a lot of like warm and fuzzies, right? Oh, let's just imagine what my life could possibly be like, and it didn't feel like it was legitimate, right? Like so. How do you, and I'm sure that I can't be the only person who thought that, or I'm sure a lot of business owners are like, numbers and give me hard facts and what can I do today, right?
Like what is this going to do for me?
Yeah, what is this going to do? Why am I putting like, drawings and pictures on a vision board or anything like that? Like, well, how is this going to really help me in my business? Right. Like, how do you have that conversation with someone who has that kind of like doubtful mentality about like what it means to envision a future for themselves?
That's a great question. All right. Because some people don't set high enough goals because they don't want to not achieve them.
Interesting.
They don't want that failure.
They're worried about the failure.
They're worried about the failure, and it overcomes them, so they don't set goals for themselves.
Interesting.
But the problem is if you don't know where you're going and you don't have a goal and you're not specific about that goal, then you're going to continue to just stay in that safe zone,
right?
That comfort zone, and that comfort zone has also got an income level to it,
right?
Right. So if you're kind of always saying to yourself, like I've known a few people in my life, and I won't mention them, but they just constantly kind of self-sabotage, because they're afraid of success, and they either they had a poor role model about money, somebody who had lots of money but was very unhappy, or they just had a history, like a legacy of people who just said, you go to work, you get your paycheck, you come home, you retire, you're done. Right. Like that's just their thing.
The consistency is more important than the growth.
Yes, absolutely. But yet in America, we are very lucky because we have unlimited opportunity. And in many, many other countries, you have unlimited opportunity regardless of where you came from, or what money your family had, or how your family's mentality is.
Right.
I think that you have to just be open. Just stop and say, how is Gus that much better than me? Like, look at Gus. He's this extremely successful person. He's traveling. He's doing what he wants. He's getting everything he wants out of life. How is he any different from me?
Right.
He just puts his pants on one leg at a time, right? And there's all this opportunity. And so I think that it really goes back to a mindset.
Yes.
And just giving yourself the chance to think big.
Yeah.
Think bigger. And you don't have to start with, I want to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
But think a little bigger.
Yeah.
When I came into real estate, I'd never made more than $38,000 a year.
Yeah.
My goal was to make $40,000 a year.
Wow.
Just because I thought, I'll have flexibility. I'll be able to, work from home, be around my kids, things like that. So that to me, 40,000 is great.
Yeah.
My first year, I made $80,000. And I was like, well, first of all, where the heck did that go? Because it didn't feel like I made $80,000. But secondly, I was like, wow, how did that happen? And if I have a plan, how could that be more?
Yeah.
And so then I started setting goals. I said, I want to make 6 figures. Never done that before in my life.
Right.
And I said, I'm going to make 6 figures. And how am I going to get there? Because I'll just make 80 again.
Yeah.
If I don't have a plan this time.
Right.
And so I think that you got to surround yourself with people with the right mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And so starting there, like you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yes, I've heard this before. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you find 5 people that you admire that are ahead of you, or at least have the mindset to be ahead this year, then hang out with them and kind of get, some ideas off of them, mastermind with them. How could I do this?
Yeah.
And then once you've done that and you surround yourself, now you become the catalyst of that in your own organization.
Yeah, I see.
So if you own a company or you run a company, that's you. Now you are one of their 5 people.
Yeah.
And you are going to have that open mindset. And the more you talk about it and the more people are involved in that, it's easier it is to understand it.
Right. Well, so it almost seems like you kind of have to be a little strategic even with the people that you hang out with, so that like you don't want to be the most successful person in your group.
No,
because then you're not able to, you're going to essentially like aspire downward as opposed to aspiring up, because you feel like if you're the top person in your 5 or 6 people, then like everyone is able to take advantage of your position, but you're not able to necessarily move in an upward direction. So it seems like you have to be willing to surround yourself with people that are more successful than you are, which I think that is a humbling experience. And a lot of people have, there are some people, I wouldn't say a lot of people, I would say there are some people who have a hard time with that. Right. But that kind of changes the way that you, I guess, engage in the world. I had, because I do productivity coaching, and and that it's not the same as what you do, but it's still a coaching element, right? And one of the things that one of the agents was running into was they just had a friend who was just sort of a Debbie Downer and always negative, and why are you trying to do so much, and so on and so forth. And real estate's not really, how much can you really make there, and all this other stuff. And I kind of said to them, I was like, listen, sometimes you have to decide, like, kind of going on this idea of like you're the average of the 5 or 6,
people.
that you hang out with. Like you have to decide like who you want to be around and what that's going to ultimately mean for you. Because if you're with someone who's constantly bringing you down, like that's more friction for you to be able to move up in the world.
Yeah.
Right. So like they're literally like an anchor preventing you from moving in the direction that you want to go in.
That's right.
And it's not to say that you have to cut them off completely, but you may want to limit how much time you allow them to influence and impact your life.
Yeah, or just limit your conversation, right? So I have a lot of family friends that don't have the growth mindset.
Yeah,
and that's okay because they're my kickback time, right?
Yeah.
And so the conversations I have with them are very different from conversations I would have with you or with another business associate.
Yeah.
And so it's really it's tailoring your business associations more than anything.
Yeah.
And just make sure that you go outside of your own business as well.
Yeah.
If people belong to a networking group like a BNI, you're going to see very, very successful people in that group, or if they're part of the Chamber of Commerce, and you may be shy at first, but you have opportunities to introduce yourself to them and sit down and just pick their brain and just say, hey, you've achieved quite a bit. People love to talk about themselves, right? I'd love to hear how you got where you are.
Yeah.
And so I do think that that's really, really important that you open. And you'd asked in the beginning of this part of the conversation about proof, right? And for me, it was proof of those type of people, right? That those would be the questions you ask. How do you set goals for yourself? Like you have achieved so much. Did you always have really big goals, or how do you set goals for yourself, and how did you achieve those?
Yeah.
Asking those people that you admire most how they got there, they're going to have a path.
Yeah.
They're going to share with you.
And I think that that's also people get it. I find that people get intimidated by success.
Sure.
So, like Brandy's a perfect example in the office, right? She's a very successful agent. She does a lot, and everyone kind of knows her, and even being on her team, I kind of felt some of this where newer agents in particular would be kind of like nervous to even have conversations with her, especially.
Sure.
But just because I was on her team, even when I first started, people were just kind of like, "Whoa, hey, you're like a big dog or something like that." And I was like, "No, I literally just started like last month, right?" But people just are intimidated to have these conversations with these super successful people. But I find that most successful people like are usually really happy to share
Yeah.
like what got them there and what was the thing that made the difference, and they saw the path and they're like they want to give back to people who are, because it's like, and I see it now, like I now see new agents in my coaching and I'm like, oh, I can just share the stuff that I know,
Right.
and then they can like just benefit from that.
They can leapfrog.
Yeah. Like I just here's the turbo to get there, right? Like here's the portal to success. Just take this, do this, and you'll be fine.
Right.
Don't make the same mistakes I made.
Yeah.
I didn't make those mistakes. I actually got some of those mistakes that Brandy and you taught me. I'm just sharing with them. You know what I'm saying? So I find that most entrepreneurs are super open to that. So as long as you're not constantly like just every time you talk to them, trying to get something from that. Yeah.
I think there's a couple things that they kind of appreciate
Yeah.
about people. So if you go to them first meeting and you're like, I really admire you. I'd love to sit down, buy you a cup of coffee and learn more about your journey and what you did. And if they make recommendations, do them.
Yeah.
Like they want to see you grow. Like they want to know they had an impact in you.
Yeah.
And so like if I sit down with somebody, I said, you should read this book. And then they come back to me 3 weeks later and they go, that book was amazing.
Yeah.
This is what I got out of it. I'm like, great, let's have coffee again. Right? Because now I know I've got somebody that's actually going to take what I'm sharing and they're going to use it.
For sure.
They're not just trying to find the easy button.
Yeah.
They're willing to do the work. And they're willing to grow. And that excites me. Now I'm going to invest more time in it.
Yeah. So one of the things that I see in super successful agents when they first get started, right? Because there's always there are people that they get frustrated at the very beginning, and then there are people that are like, it doesn't matter what kind of struggles they run into, they are always excited.
Yeah.
And I find that the ones that are they're excited. The people who get excited about the process as opposed to the results.
Yep.
Like those are the people that really are able to sort of like jump into like that fast lane.
Yes.
And really do well, really, really fast.
Right.
Because they love the process.
Right.
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 And they're not necessarily looking. The result is something they're wanting, but they're not looking at their day-to-day results. They're looking at, well, if I just do this every single day and I can just achieve these like little wins over time, then I think I'll get there. And then they're excited, like, oh, I spoke to 100 people this week, right? And like, there's no business, there's no nothing, right? They just spoke to 100 people. That's it.
But they know that that's going to get them where they need to go. That's a predictable success, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, especially in today's society, because we're all so used to everything being instant, right? I can order something on Amazon and have it by 10 o'clock tonight.
Oh, for sure.
I can text somebody and have them answer me immediately. I mean, gosh, when I started my professional career, I didn't have email. I would have to call somebody and I would have to leave a message. And they might call me back in 2 days.
Yeah.
If I was lucky.
Yeah.
And so, everything is so instant. If we need to look something up, we go online. We can text somebody. We can order it. We can buy it. We can have it come delivered to our door, right? And so we have to remember that that's not how you can build a business.
Yeah.
Building a business is not instant.
Yes.
It is you've got to celebrate, like you said, every little win along the way.
Yeah.
Like we used to tell real estate agents, how many conversations about real estate did you have today?
Yeah.
Like if you're owning a business and you're starting a business, how many people did you tell about your new business today?
Right.
Because if they don't know about it, they can't send people to you.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
For sure. And it's interesting that you say it like that, because a lot of people make the mistake of the people that they're talking to, they're trying to pitch.
Yeah. No, don't do that.
Yeah.
You don't need to pitch it.
Yeah.
You're just making them aware.
Yeah.
Okay?
Because you want them to, you want to them to influence their sphere of influence.
That's right.
Right. So that they can share, oh, you know what? I know someone who might actually need your thing. Right.
Yeah. And they don't have to remember all the details.
Yeah.
They just know that you are part of an organization that's got it together.
Yeah.
And you've got enough training. You're going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And it'll grow from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, maybe give them some pens next time you see them. Your name printed out. But, I think that the whole thing really is, we used to say, don't be a secret agent in real estate. Now, with business owners, I'm like, you've got to get your name out.
Yeah, for sure.
You really got to get your name out there. You got to figure out how that's going to happen. And a lot of it is local networking. Like if you're starting a small business, a lot of it is just local networking. And there's tons of networking organizations. You can even just visit. You don't even have to join.
Right. So I kind of want to switch gears a little bit because, there's a lot going on in the world today.
Yes.
Right. And I'd be interested to kind of hear your perspective on just all of the crazy that's kind of happening. The economy is kind of acting weird. We don't know where it's going to go. People think it's going to go up. People think it's going to go down. People are nervous about who's going to be president, whether that's going to even impact. Some people think it's going to be a catastrophe, regardless of who is this group over here thinks that it's going to be a catastrophe if the Dems win. This group over here is going to think it's a catastrophe if the Republicans win. Everything is a catastrophe, right? So, as a business owner, it seems like there's so much uncertainty right now. What do you what do you say to a business owner that is experiencing all of this sort of uncertainty? Like, how do you coach a person through that when they're really nervous about that I've had even some just talking about agents, experienced agents in the business. The real estate business there's been some changes in the real estate business with the NAR settlement and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that combined with how the market's shifting and how the economy is, I have seen experienced agents that were doing six figures, year over year, are seriously contemplating, well, maybe I should get out of the business.
Absolutely.
And I'm just like, well, why would you want to get out of the business? Oh, with just everything happening and all the, and they're just really concerned about what's happening in the world. And they're thinking, well, maybe they want to go a different direction. So how do you engage with someone who has those, I mean, they're very real concerns, but what's that conversation sound like?
That's a great question. Prior to 2020, we didn't really have any personal reference to completely world-changing events, right? We some of us had 9/11 and we remembered that, but most of us, a lot of the people in the workforce today, they weren't running a business at that time, right?
Yeah.
COVID changed everything, but one silver lining was that now we have reference. Now we know uncertainty. We know what uncertainty is because we had no idea how that was going to change our world.
Sure.
Like prior to COVID, if you saw somebody with a mask in an airport, you thought, oh my gosh, that poor person must be going through chemotherapy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now it's just commonplace.
Yeah.
Right. Everything changed with COVID. So I think that having survived that, and anybody in business today is more than 4 years old, right?
Yeah.
Having survived COVID, you can do anything.
Sure.
You can do anything.
Yeah.
You come to realize that change is going to happen. There's one thing you can't change is change.
Yeah.
Change is going to happen. You have to sit back and observe. You have to try not to overreact.
Yeah.
And just take your time and see how it's happening. And really understanding your business, your key performance indicators in your business, kind of those lead measures.
Yeah.
And I'm going into a whole different thing, but understanding your business and being able to have a way to track if it is trending down so that you can react quickly. And I think that's the biggest thing. So having that, if you're headed into uncertainty, having clarity on your own business and your own process and where knobs can be turned to be able to turn that business back up again is going to help you through anything.
So, I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is and correct me if I'm wrong, is the uncertainty of the world is not anything we necessarily can impact, but we can impact the some semblance of certainty within our business.
Absolutely.
We can control those elements, like the knobs, what you're saying, right? And you mentioned earlier, and I know it's a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I do talk a lot about this in our productivity coaching, where it's people always want to look at lag measures as opposed to really understanding the importance of lead measures.
Right.
And I love that concept. And I only track lead measures because for me, if I track my lead measures, the lag measures will come.
Absolutely.
And I don't really need to track them so much. It's more of like, oh, the results essentially are my lag measures, right? So I don't want to necessarily track my results. I want to track, well, what activities am I doing that's going to get me the results that I want? And that way I have the most control over what the results are going to be.
You do.
Right?
That's when you can change it.
Yeah.
Once it's done, it's done.
So for those people who don't understand what lead measures are, like how would you describe lead measures versus lag measures?
Okay, so let's say you're opening a business, any business.
Okay.
Right, and you need to get the word out that you have this business.
Yeah.
If you just are working on, getting your computers lined up and doing, all the technical things, hiring the right people, all those things have to happen.
Sure.
But at the same time, you've got to be getting the word out. So a lead measure might be the number of community organizations you visit.
Okay.
Okay. So you might go to a BNI.
Okay.
And if you don't know what BNI is, that's like a national networking organization that is in every single state.
Right.
So I always use that one as an example.
Right. They're actually, I think are they national or international?
They're international.
Yeah.
You're right. They're international. And they've got systems and processes that work.
Yeah.
And lead measures.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So if you say, well, a lead measure for people to know about my business is for me to go out and talk about my business.
Okay.
And so I might go visit BNIs. I might go visit what you call a golden goose. So a golden goose might be like if you're in commercial real estate, it might be an attorney that handles commercial clients.
I see.
And so they'd say, hey, here's this attorney that is helping people set up their businesses.
Yeah.
Well, what is a business going to need? It's going to need commercial real estate
Yeah.
space. And so you could create a relationship with that attorney, or at least make them aware that you exist.
Yeah.
Don't be a secret agent.
Right.
So in any business, there needs to be an awareness, whether you pop onto Google or you're doing any other, local advertising in your area. That's going to be a lead measure. We're going to need to get the name out.
Right.
And then we're going to want to track how many people call in on that.
Gotcha.
And that also it's a lead and a lag measure, because now let's say I put an ad out, right? And I say 20% off your first purchase with my business. I'm just trying to keep it as generic as I can.
Yeah.
And I get 5 people who respond to that. But then I put another ad out that has like a picture of before and after of my product, and I get 20 calls on that.
Yeah.
I know that was more effective.
Yeah.
So by measuring that response, then I now have a lag measure, but that lag measure is going to help me do more leads.
I gotcha.
So I can learn from, it's almost like an A/B testing. Like in technology,
I can see that.
You test things out there, but you've got to track them.
Yeah.
You could go to BNI once a week for 3 years, and if you never get any business out of that, then it was a waste of your time.
Yeah.
And time is so valuable.
For
so
sure.
really always, tracking those lead measures. So for real estate, obviously it's going to be conversations.
Sure.
For coaches, it's conversations.
Sure.
If somebody wants to build a coaching business, they've got to talk to a lot of people about coaching.
Yeah.
For, manufacturers, it's really having conversations with other people in the industry that could provide them an opportunity to make a part for them, and they could become a client. So those are all lead measures, and then you measure everything after that is lag.
Gotcha.
And honestly, the most important lead measure is setting aside time
to do the thing in the first place.
And so one of the things another book that I brought was The One Thing, and it talks about blocking time to do those things that are going to propel the business forward.
So talk about The One Thing, because I read The One Thing. It's a great book. For those of you who haven't read it, it's amazing. Can you give me just sort of like your synopsis of like what it is that you pull away from this book? Because this is a book that I've actually read a couple times.
Okay.
And in your mind, like what was so impactful about that book for you?
Okay, so I'm gonna take it out so people recognize. It's kind of beat up because I've used it quite a bit. But the most impactful thing about The One Thing is that there is something you can do such that by doing that, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary.
Yeah.
And that is their mantra.
Yeah.
Right?
Super powerful.
So yeah, it is, because if you think about it, if there's one thing you can do that is going to be a catalyst for everything else in your business, then you need to make time to do that.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to. So people, when I interview business owners or I start my coaching journey with them, I say, don't worry about the money, don't worry about the time. What is one thing that would change your business?
Yeah.
And they might say, well, if I could start doing government contracts,
yeah,
that would absolutely change my business. I could scale up, I could have consistent flow, I could do all these things. What's stopping you from doing government
why don't you do
contracts?
that
Right?
thing? Yeah.
Do it. What do you do? Oh, well, there's a process and an application, and there's this. What does that take? Time.
Yeah.
So you got to set aside the time
Yeah.
to be able to get that going in
Right.
your business. And that is going to be the catalyst. Well, every business has something like that.
Yeah.
Every business. So the one thing helps you understand that concept and then block time
For
to
sure.
do those things that are priority in your
Yeah.
business to make it successful.
Right.
For other people, it's just finding one great hire.
Oh, yeah.
If I had one great person to do what I'm spending 80% of my time doing,
Yeah.
I could have so much more time to build my business and work on my business. And again, it goes down to taking the time to find that great hire because they're out there. You got to find them.
Yeah. So. And then this is something that is it's always evolving, right? Like as your business changes and adjusts and it grows, like the one thing, I mean, at least what I got from it was like it may be the great hire, but then once you get the great hire,
there's another one thing.
What's the next
another
one thing?
Yeah, what's the next thing? And that's how you're growing.
Yeah.
And that's how you're going from a $5 million business to a $10 million business to a $100 million business.
Yeah.
Because you're carving out time.
Yes.
So that's really what it's all about.
Yeah. This was a really powerful book for me because I have squirrel syndrome like it's nobody's business.
Sure.
It's a problem.
Sure.
But one of the things that this book really helped me with is understanding that because I always try to do everything at the same time.
Yep.
And that's my problem.
Multitasking.
I'm sure most people have a lot of that. Yeah. Like I'm literally trying to like, if I just had 2 more arms, I'll be great. So I have that problem. I run into this issue all the time. And, what this book does is I think what it did really for me is I knew that I had this thing that I had to do, but I felt like I had all these other things that I also had to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what this book helped me to do is to identify, well, what is the most impactful of these things that I need to do, and then identify that, and then say, okay, well, if that's the most impactful thing, then I need to figure out a way to get that done.
Right.
Because if I can get that done, then all of this stuff becomes so much easier because now I want to have more time, and 2, whatever that leverage is, because typically it's some kind of leverage.
Right. Absolutely.
Now that I have that leverage, I can do more. Right. One of the things for productivity coaching, for example, that I ran into is, and this is relative. It's once I got into it, I ran into a problem of everyone had a lot of questions.
Okay.
And I had to answer every single one of them.
And they're probably a lot of the same questions.
It's a lot of the same questions. Yeah. A lot of it was just I'm on rinse and repeat, and like every week after week it's the same answer. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And then the way that we set up our classes, like, no one's required to come. You come because you want to come. I mean, I didn't want them to be required. You need to want to come.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's your business, right?
Right.
So people will be asking me stuff that I just taught yesterday.
Right.
And I'm just like, I just taught this yesterday. Please come to the classes. And that started frustrating me. And it was just eating up my time. It literally just was taking up. I was doing just so much. I still have my commercial business. Yeah. And then I'm also doing this. So it's literally 2 businesses I'm running at the same time.
Right.
But my productivity coaching business is really starting to eat into my commercial business. And I'm like, I got to be able to service my commercial clients.
That's right.
And I realized that if I had some resource that I can share with people, so that if people had a question for me, I can just be like, hey, check out this resource.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden that would change. That would change the world for me. And I was like, okay, well, what resources do I have? And then what resources can I create? And I realized that, okay, there's some online resources that we already have. So I built that. Yep. And I was like, that was good. But I still needed more because people needed, like, they were still asking me questions about like stuff that I was teaching. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to create like an online platform where I'm teaching the same stuff I'm teaching in class. I'm doing an online version. It's not going to be as interactive and it's not going to be as impactful, but it's at least the information. Yeah. And so I literally took the last 3 months to put together an online platform.
Nice.
That people can go on and just learn what I'm teaching in class online.
Perfect.
And that now is like changing my world, because now if anyone has a question about, oh, I'm not sure how to do a CMA or, whatever, I'm like, oh,
there's a video.
There's a video. Enjoy. Right. If you still have questions, let me know.
That's perfect.
So like that literally changed everything for me, because now people ask me questions, I can just send them a resource. Hey, no worries. And that takes seconds.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
As opposed to like, I'm going to sit down with you and we're going to have a conversation for an hour over and over and over again.
Right.
So that was really super impactful for me, because I realized at the time, before I had to reread this, because I was like, I got to figure out how to do this.
That's right.
And it wasn't until I reread this, I was like, oh, I am doing this all wrong.
You just have to check yourself.
Yeah.
You just go back to basics.
But it is one of those books that you can read over and over again.
You
still pull some really good stuff.
And it's a quick read.
Oh yeah.
And every time you read it, you get something else out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You really do. I mean, I remember the first time I read it, it was just kind of like almost like brain fog.
Sure.
And then the second time I read it, I was actually needing to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And I found it.
Yeah.
Found the solution. And so I think that it's a great read, and as you can see, mine has been well used.
Yes.
So that's a great one. Along the same lines as Traction. I think a lot of people have heard of Traction.
Yeah.
If you've already read it, then just implement it. Yeah. It's time to implement it. This one's a little more complex than this one.
Yes.
But I think it's the same concept. You walk away with tools for getting clarity on your goals and having a strategy and a plan in both of these.
Yeah, yes.
And so they're both really good books. That's why I brought both of them.
Awesome.
And then really, this is the book that's going to tell you need those books.
Right.
So
read that one first.
Yeah, read that one first. Because that one, it really does, like, first of all, you won't feel so alone. I mean, you said that in the beginning. Does everybody feel this way? Everybody feels this way.
Oh, for sure.
At some point in their business.
Well, I mean, I feel like
if they don't, they're lying.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like entrepreneurship is kind of a lonely place.
It is. It
right?
can be lonely.
Like you have to find your peers.
Yes.
Right? Because if you don't, you're going to be by yourself, because everyone who's associated with your business, they're looking at you, and then there's no one for you to necessarily look at unless you identify someone to do that with.
That's right. That's right. So in your 5 people, one person in your industry would be very helpful.
Yes.
Or at least an associated industry.
Right.
That would be very helpful.
Yeah.
That has like the same target audience.
Yeah. And who's more successful than you.
Yes.
If possible, right?
Absolutely.
Because that way you can learn from whatever they, hopefully whatever they've already learned from, right?
Yep.
So we were talking earlier that now you have a lot more freedom. You're traveling a little more. You're kind of snowbirding it now, and which is awesome. I've seen you travel to Europe a few times, which is amazing. I love that. What has, as an entrepreneur, like, what is it that you feel was the I guess the most impactful for you in getting to a place that allows you to kind of do all this stuff now you have enough success, you've been able to build success, right, to get you to a place to be able to live sort of the lifestyle that you want,
right?
Like what do you think was the most impactful factor, if there's one, or are there many?
There's a lot. I think the moment in time I could identify was when I went to a development course. And in that development course, they told us to write a letter to ourselves.
Ooh.
And set goals for 1 year from that date.
Okay.
And I wrote a letter. Yeah. And I wrote it. I was one of those people. I wrote little goals.
Yes.
Like I didn't stretch myself. I wrote little goals.
Well, it was comfortable.
And it was comfortable.
Yeah.
And 1 year later, they mailed it to me.
Okay.
It was so cool. Like they gathered them. And then a year later on the nose, they mailed it to me. And I opened it up and I had hit every single one of those goals.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, I must have set them too low. Right? I don't believe in this stuff. I must have said that too low. So then I stretched it. I did the course again because it was so good. Such a good course. And I did the course again and I wrote the letter again. This time I made the goals a lot harder.
Yeah.
And do you know, I did every single one of those except one thing. And the one thing was really, sky high. Right. So every year I do that. I set a goal for the year. I don't mail it to myself. I could. It might actually be really good, but I have it in a journal.
Yeah.
And I have a place that I like to reflect. A home that I go to every year in the summer.
Sure.
And I like to reflect and I look at those goals and I set those goals.
Yeah.
And I think that just opening my own mind to the potential, but then going back and having a plan.
Yeah.
Then it wasn't just, this is, I expect the universe to just drop this on me.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a plan to get there. So how am I going to get there? How am I going to buy a second home? I need X amount of dollars to buy a second home or an investment property. So do the research. So then carve out time, talk to a mortgage person. How much money am I going to need? What's my buying power going to be? Now I know what I need to make.
Yeah.
Make then every month put that kind of money away.
Yeah.
What do I need to? It's a step-by-step plan that's going to get me there. And so that to me, I never ever felt in control of my finances until I had read that book and learned that I just needed a plan. And now I felt so empowered. There's this great thing called it's not disposable income, but it's you might know. I don't remember what it's called, but it's basically freedom, your freedom number. If I were to have this much money, I could do anything I wanted. I could go where I want. Airbnb's made that great.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you don't have to stay in hotels anymore. You can go stay in someone else's house, and that saves you a ton of money. But I could go anywhere I want. I could do anything I want. And one of my long-term dreams was to be able to go live in a different country.
Yeah.
Every year, go identify a country, live there for 1 month, like a local, but work remotely. And that's what I did. That's where coaching really drove me, is that I wanted to be able to go live in a different country every year, stay in somebody's Airbnb and just work remotely. And that was huge for me. And so, but I had to do what? I had to get to that freedom number.
Yes.
I had to have the right job. And we gave ourselves a 10-year window to do that. My husband and I, we had the same goal. And, it must have been, I guess it was 14 years ago.
Yeah.
We said, this is what we want to do. We both want to have jobs where we work remote. We could live anywhere in the world and work. And we did it.
That's awesome.
And we did it in 7 years.
Oh, wow. So even sooner than expected.
Yep.
That's awesome. That's actually a conversation that my wife and I we recently had. Like, okay, well, what would we need to, like, what kind of income would we need? Or what would we need to be able to live the lifestyle that we want? And we realized there's that freedom number. Like, we need this much per year, and then we would need to have some flex. We don't want to be necessarily locked in a particular location or all this. There's all kinds of different variables. And we actually just had that conversation, which is interesting that you're bringing that up, because we're trying to identify what that is for us.
What are the lead measures?
Yes.
What are the lead measures? You get that number.
Yeah.
And then you work backwards and you get your lead measures and all the different pieces that go together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now I'm like I'm even thinking about my career differently. I'm thinking about the opportunities differently. Like, it's a different mindset on how to even look at my business. Right.
Yes.
So I think that's definitely very impactful to know what that number is, because it's less than most people think it is.
Oh yeah, way less.
Yeah,
way less.
Like, it's people think, oh, you need to have $1 million. You need to be making $1 million a year. No, you don't need that much money.
You don't.
Like, it's not even close to that.
That's right.
Like, you can really, like, especially if you plan it right and you do it right, and you limit what your expenses are and stuff like that, and just only spend money on the things that you really matter.
Right.
Like, you really don't need that much money. It was really impressive how little money, once we kind of broke it down, like, oh wow, that's it. That's all we would need. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think here's a simple thought on that. Before Airbnb, before you could go rent somebody's home, you had to stay in a hotel.
Yeah.
Well, to stay in a hotel, you had to pay for 3 meals a day.
Yes.
You had parking. You had all these incredible
ancillary
taxes.
all these other fees and stuff
tipping
like that.
people. You had it was a life of luxury.
Sure.
But with Airbnb, now you're in a house. You can grocery shop. You can cook. You can have the same grocery budget you had at home.
Yeah.
So the only thing extra that it's costing you is your flight.
Yeah.
And the Airbnb. And let me tell you, there are plenty of places in Europe where it is dirt cheap to fly there and live there for a month. Plenty of places. So, I think it's just, and South America and wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
They're there.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, I do want to touch a little bit on, like, do you have any thoughts on, because I know everyone has their opinion on where the economy is going. Do you have any thoughts on
where it's going?
Yeah.
I am definitely not qualified to discuss that. But what I can say is that other than the threat of AI, right? Because AI is a real thing.
Sure.
And that is going to change the way we do business and what kind of jobs exist.
Sure.
I mean, there are kids in high school now that are going to do jobs we haven't even thought of.
Oh, for sure.
We don't, but there will be jobs.
Yeah. It'll be different. Yeah.
I think that creating, if you're thinking about going into business, making sure it's something that's going to survive AI, like working in the home repair business, right? Whether it's like garage doors or it's air conditioning or electrical.
They're not going to have robots fixing those things right now. Right?
Not for a while. For a long time.
Yeah.
So, so maybe, and that my daughter or my sister's grandson didn't want to go to college per se. And he said, what should I do? And I said, plumbing or electrical. You pick. And he picked electrical.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad he did. He's like 19 years old and he's an apprentice already.
That's awesome.
And he's working his way through that industry, which is so desperately needs
people. Oh, for sure.
But if you are owning a business today, really start reading on AI.
Yeah.
I would read on that and how it's going to affect your business and your workers.
Yeah.
Because that is what is like, you look at all the disruption in Hollywood, in the music industry, now in the dock workers, the strike, they don't want their jobs to go away because of robots. So all this automation and AI, it's going to affect all of our businesses. And so I would say that if you want to really research something, economies go up and down.
Yeah.
Wars break out. It's happened forever.
Yeah.
Just take a deep breath. Watch how it washes out. Yeah. Don't overreact in the beginning. AI is coming. Yeah. And I would definitely say, learn as much as you can about that and how it's going to affect your industry.
I would completely agree with that. Absolutely. So, one of the things that I think is, and this is just my opinion, but because we are sort of we've really established a global economy now.
Yes.
And the United States is not known for making stuff. We don't make stuff anymore, right? We stopped making stuff a long time ago, and we can't afford to make stuff compared to other countries. But the one thing that I think, our country would probably do really well at, because we're just a country of entrepreneurs, is to really lean into that.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the switch that needs to happen is because there's a lot of like corporations and people talk about corporatism and all this other stuff, and there's all kinds of conspiracies around that, whatever. But I think that there are so many resources that we have as Americans to be able to build a business that require much less than it used to, and then be able to scale much faster than we used to ever be able to do. And because as entrepreneurs, you can be really nimble.
Yeah.
I can be an entrepreneur and have like multiple assistants that are in the Philippines or Mexico or wherever, right? And at a fraction of the cost. And then, and then AI, as much as it's going to have a potential negative impact in what's going to happen in society, there are also positive things that can happen from it too. Right? I actually leverage AI a lot in my own business right now. So, by being able to do that, I'm able to like leverage a lot more as an entrepreneur, because of the fact that I can go ahead and hire a virtual assistant, and I can leverage this AI, and like with less money, I can do more.
And more time.
Yes.
A lot of that leverage buys you more time.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
So I really feel like entrepreneurship is the future of our economy. I think that, if someone is contemplating getting into business and they're nervous about it, like they need to just pull the Band-Aid off and go for it.
That's right.
Right. Like, I think this is a great time to become an entrepreneur, take control of your life, and like really be able to kind of build like a legacy for not only for yourself, but for your family, and and you get to control all the knobs, as you mentioned earlier, right?
That's right.
And then working with someone like you, who you're a business coach, once they get to a certain point, like I would imagine there's going to be a point where they hit a ceiling. That's the time where you need to go outside of your business and say, hey, I need help.
Yep.
Right. So that's how they would reach someone like you, to be able to say, hey, I'm here and I don't know how to get any higher than this.
Yeah, you can get yourself so far.
Yeah.
And then you kind of hit a ceiling, and then you've got to do something different.
Yeah.
And if you try and do it on your own, you're probably just going to go back and hit the same ceiling again, hit the same ceiling, hit the same ceiling.
It's very difficult.
That happened to me in real estate.
Yeah.
My first year, I made $80,000 selling 21 homes. My second year, I sold 21 homes again. There's something wrong with that picture.
Yeah.
My third year, I had a coach. And it all changed from there on. So, so that's where, you look at that opportunity, somebody from the outside.
Yeah.
It could be a coach, it could be a mentor,
Sure.
it could be an organization. There's so many great organizations out there that are within your industry, whatever industry you're in, that are taking people to the next level through workshops and training and all of that. So just look for what is going to get you to the next level.
That's awesome.
And read.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I really wish I could meet Les McEwen. He is so smart. He put all his best ideas in this book.
Yeah,
just read the book, right? Or listen to it on Audible if you don't like to read.
Yeah.
But when I joined Keller Williams, that was when I started reading. Like didn't read, and then I came here, and everybody was like, "You got to read, man. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
This is all their best conversations.
Right,
you can spend 5 hours with Les, and you won't get what you get.
Yeah. And like for the MREA book, it's just it's like it's literally like an instruction manual.
Oh yeah.
Like here, you want to be in real estate? Here, read this book and just follow what they say, what it tells you.
That's what Brandy did. That's how people are like, how did Brandy get so successful? She followed the MREA page by page by page. And when I would coach her, that's what she would bring to our coaching session. She's like, this is the chapter I'm on. I want to implement this. I'm like, let's do it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I want to be super respectful of your time.
Thank you.
So I guess two questions. If someone is curious about what it means to even work with you, like what does that look like?
Oh, that's a great question.
Just a quick and fast.
So when they start that journey, it starts with what we call a business assessment, and it's just about a 45-minute phone call. I usually block an hour because oftentimes people have more questions afterwards. But basically, all I'm doing is going through a process of there's 5 different models that run any business, and I'm kind of asking about each of those 5 models and if they exist in your business and how you do that portion of it. So it might be people. Right? How do you do the people part of your business? And then I can investigate, and find out how mature they are in that model. And so I just spend about 45 minutes, no obligation, just learning about that business. I love to learn about all the different businesses, and I will always walk away with something, a tool or something. If coaching's not right for them, I'll have tons of resources for them anyway. And then after that, if they decide that they really do need to do coaching to be able to move that needle, then we talk about, how often and how long we would be talking. And then there would be a package for everybody.
Gotcha. Now, how expensive is that consult?
Okay. So, the consult is free.
Oh, okay. So you basically get an hour to kind of get an assessment. You do a whole assessment for an hour.
I do.
And you basically, when they walk out of there, they're going to know whether or not coaching is a good fit for them or not.
Yep, they're going to know where the weaknesses are in their business and what are some tools to help them overcome those weaknesses.
So they would even have their own actionable things that they can do even if they choose not to move forward with you.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
And then if they are ready to coach, which oftentimes they walk away. Some people can implement that stuff.
Yeah.
Some people are still in their business and
sure.
they can't. They need help getting out of their business, and then they hire me to help get them out of the business and get these things implemented.
I gotcha. And what kind of what would you say? Because I would imagine this is and I don't want to stress this out too long, but I just want to make sure we get some clarity. Like, what kind of time frame can someone expect to see some kind of results or something? Like what would you say is a reasonable time frame? Because so people have a reasonable expectation about things, right?
Yeah.
What would you say is a reasonable time frame, assuming somebody is actually implementing the things that you guys are talking about?
If they make the commitment to implement them, you could do 6 months of coaching and be good for a while.
Really?
Until you hit that next threshold.
Okay.
Right? But if they are struggling, they're still in their business quite in depth. It usually takes about a year.
I gotcha.
So my average contract, it used to be a year, but I've had some people for 4 and 5 years because I can take them each up to those levels.
And they're getting value from it, so they're staying with you.
Yeah, it really depended on their commitment to it.
Gotcha.
The people who kind of tap out at 6 months, they haven't done their portion of it.
Gotcha.
They're not implementing what we're
deciding,
and I don't decide. They decide.
Yeah.
They make the commitment, and they tell me, we look at the options and what would move the needle. We talk about kind of a first domino. What is one little thing you could do this week to move us that direction? And as long as they are committed to doing what I call their commitments, then they're going to keep moving forward, and they're going to want to have at least a year of coaching to get things in systems in place. But I would say most of my clients are 2 to 4 years.
Right.
That's how long I have them, but they don't have to be.
Right.
I have somebody right now. a one thing person who said, I just want to master the 411, which is a tool that you get out of this book. I just want to master the 411. I think I'm going to be in coaching for like 90 days. And I'm like, great, let's do it. Let's see how you do. It's going to be up to you whether you can get in and out that fast.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. And then if somebody wanted to reach you, what's the best way to reach you, to get in contact with you?
The best way is to email me. Okay. So that would be MJ at mymapscoach.com.
Okay. And
MJ
then
at mymapscoach.com.
Awesome. And then they can just set up they send you an email.
You guys send me an email,
coordinate
and I'll send them a calendar link, and then they can just choose a time to talk to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, make it really easy.
Okay, great. Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming out and
talking
with us, sharing with everyone out there in the ether.
Very honored. I'm excited. I hope this was helpful to people. And get the books. Call me, email me, whatever.
Absolutely. So
I'm here to help.
If you guys have any questions, with regard to your business as it relates to your business, please reach out to MJ. She can give you some good insight. She's willing to have that conversation with you on your own for an hour, to talk about your business and what that can mean for your business. So please take the time to do so. And other than that, I appreciate you coming out and sharing. Yeah. And I thank you guys for watching. If you like what you're watching and you want to hear more of it, please make sure you comment and like this video, share this video. Comment any ideas or thoughts that you might want to see or hear about in future conversations. I'd love to hear about it. This is the Ortiz Anomaly. My name is Gus. This is MJ Coleman, and I appreciate your time. Talk to you guys later.
Thank you.
Peace.